ESPN's Mike Rodak with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. Mike, of course, covering the Buffalo Bills, and this week in Phoenix at the NFL owners meetings. And Mike, you got an exclusive along with your counterpart Dan Graziano with Bills head coach Rex Ryan yesterday. That's pretty cool, man. A lot came out of this conversation, but Levack and I sit back and go, gosh, Rex Ryan telling you guys that they're that much closer to the Patriots, talking about the Patriots. It's crazy how much Rex Ryan is dedicated to beating the bottoms of the Patriots. He's obsessive, isn't he, Mike?
I was going to use that word myself, actually. There's definitely an obsession on his part. I think that drove him staying in the division and staying, trying to beat the Patriots and get after them. So it's definitely a case of he's choosing his words carefully. I remember there was a radio interview up in Toronto a couple weeks ago, and he sort of made waves by saying, the rest of the AFC has gotten stronger. Obviously, Jets with their secondary, and Dolphins with Sue, and the Bills, and everything they've done. He said the Patriots hadn't gotten stronger, and he sort of clarified that this week, saying that, well, it's tough to get stronger when you're already the Super Bowl champions. But he's like, they did lose Vince Wilfork and Darrelle Revis, so in sort of a typical Rex Ryan style. He goes, oh, yeah, hope that catches up to him. So he's always, he's looking to get in his shots and sort of, kind of chasing after them a little bit. And that's what he does. He doesn't lack confidence. He doesn't back away from sort of the challenge or the task ahead of him. So it definitely rubs people the wrong way in some parts of the NFL, but that's who he is, and I think he's going to continue to do that, definitely.
It's amazing to me. I thought that at least half of his love/hatred for the Patriots would go to the Jets now, but he really seems to be leaving them alone.
I just don't think they really matter as much to him as the Patriots do. Obviously, it's talk about a fourth-place team right now, and even though they've made some additions, I don't think they're a major threat to the Bills. That's obviously a testament to what the Bills have done. So it's full Patriots, full time for him, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Mike Rodak, ESPN with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. Mike, the Bills announcing that they have record ticket sales going on. You talking to Rex Ryan, multiple times now. You see that personality. That was a big part of this move, wasn't it?
It is. It's. I mean, obviously, they don't hire him just to sell tickets, but when you have 12 guys in for interviews, and the Hugh Jacksons and Adam Gazes and some of the names that came up obviously don't inspire the same sort of confidence and national attention that Rex Ryan does. So, if you're Terry Paguli or Kim Paguli or Russ Brandon, you're making that decision, it certainly factors into it. So, but it's not just that. I wouldn't say it's just Rex. Obviously, the McCoy trade, I think, got people excited, and there's just a general sentiment that the team's getting better. Obviously, that I think was around last offseason, and it obviously never panned out. Especially with the Sammy Watkins trade, I don't think they really were able to get returns on that like they wanted to. So this is the time of year that they sell tickets. That was sort of the message to me this week that hey, it's great now, but if we're losing games and the team is losing games in November, December, we're not going to sell tickets no matter what, no matter Rex Ryan's the coach or Vince Lombardi or whoever. So there's still work to be done on that end, and the people around here, those people around here certainly know that.
Now, one of the things that we've paid close attention to is the quote-unquote quarterback competition. Tyrod Taylor, who he's coming in, he's going to have an open shot at this job just as much as the other two?
Yeah, that's pretty much the message that's been put out there by Rex. I mean, Rex tried to trade for him in New York. Thinks he's probably one of the fastest quarterbacks in the NFL, and kind of compares him to Russell Wilson, a guy who can run some of the zone read stuff and tuck the ball and run a little bit. He talked to people who've seen Tyrod Taylor in college or the limited action he's seen in Baltimore in the preseason, and there's not too much to really work off of, but his arm strength is there, his accuracy is not there. He's not a great pocket passer, so he's definitely the third man in the race, and I think it would be surprising if he does win the job. So think it really comes down to Castle or EJ, and if Castle's competent enough, I think he's probably your best bet as a starter.
Oh, listen to all this great common sense coming over the phones. I love this. Mike Rodak, ESPN. He's in Phoenix at the NFL owners meetings because Mike Levack and I have had this discussion where Levack took, Rex Ryan's audio and comments about Tyrod Taylor and saying, hey, this is going to be a guy that competes for the position, but Rex talks up everybody. And I think you got there, and I want to confirm it with you. There's no reason to believe that this guy is going to realistically compete for the first string job.
Well, yeah, I mean, realistically, it depends on your definition of that, just because they are going to structure those training camp practices so they can have different quarterbacks going at once, and they do want to get Tyrod and EJ and even Jeff Toole as many reps as possible, which is different than Marone. Marone will just have one practice field going and then sub guys in and out. So it's entirely possible that maybe Tyrod Taylor for some reason works out in training camp. Who knows? Because he'll have the opportunities to do so. And then also his contract. I mean, they structured that contract in a way that gets him a lot more money if he's the starter. He can earn up to $7 million in his first 2 years as the starter. And the last year of the contract voids as well. So I don't think they would have done that if they didn't think that there was any shot of him being the starter. I think they would have assigned him to a minimum deal or looked for somebody else. So they extended him that concession in some ways, and that is one sign at least that it's maybe not a realistic option, but it's an option to say the least.
It's instead of realistic, it's Rex. It could happen because Rex is involved.
Quite possibly.
You can use that, by the way, if you need to. Rex is.
I like that.
Yeah.
Rex-listic. Yeah, that works.
Now, speaking of Rex, so the announcement today that the Browns are going to continue to practice with the Bills, I found that odd considering that Mike Pettin, put his foot in his mouth not too long ago and said that Rex hands out playbooks like candy. Is there any worry that these two, aren't going to be able to play together nicely?
I think there's sort of a love-hate relationship between those two guys. I mean, they obviously work together, and I think there was a point where Pettin, I think, felt like he needed to get out of there. It was too much in Rex's shadow, and but they're still, they have a background together, and those teams are geographically pretty close. So it makes sense to do what they're doing this summer, especially with the Steelers. Having a Hall of Fame game, they couldn't really do the joint practices as they wanted to, and that set up this opportunity. So it will be a couple days up at Fisher in Rochester with the Browns coming in, and then Doug Whaley told me it'll be the second preseason game, so they'll actually get on to Cleveland for that. Everybody will kind of make the drive down the next day, and then have probably the game the day after that, and then it's just a one year thing for now, and they'll reevaluate it, next offseason to see if they can keep doing it. Probably assumes that Mike Pettin's still the coach of the Browns next year.
Oh.
Fair.
We'll see.
That's fair. ESPN's Mike Rodak with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. Your home for New York sports at Mike Rodak on Twitter. He is in Phoenix at the NFL owners meetings. You guys talked to Rex Ryan yesterday in which he told you how surprised he was that the LaShawn McCoy trade happened within 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes. I mean, it got us believing, Mike, that the Eagles just shoved that guy out of there. I mean, this could heavily fall into the Bills' favor considering that they had an opening at the running back position and just how good this guy is.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, they weren't looking for a running back. That's, as you just said, it wasn't something that they went into the offseason saying, hey, let's go trade for LaShawn McCoy, or let's go trade for Adrian Peterson, or let's go get, a top-tier running back like that. It was something that Eagles made the call, and as Rex said, everybody was sort of stunned that it was even, a possibility, and that sort of made it move quickly from there. It was interesting. I learned yesterday, or Sal Palantonio actually passed us along, that the Eagles threw out a couple names at the Bills at which players, they might want in return, and Kiko is one of them. But Robert Woods is actually another. So Eagles wanted Woods, and I don't think the Bills really wanted to part with him. And that makes sense. I mean, that was before the Bills signed Percy Harvin, and really they had nobody beyond that. So that sort of led to Kiko, and then I think once they realized, they don't really need Kiko, and they got by pretty fine with him, without him last year, it made sense for that trade to go down as quickly as it did.
Tight end Charles Clay joins the team now, says he's excited to be a part of it. What are you hearing about his role? Is he going to be like the Bills equivalent of Vernon Davis?
Right, in some ways. I think they want him to be the more complete tight end than what they had last year. So they had Scott Chandler and they had Lee Smith, and Chandler was more of a passing guy, and Lee Smith would come in and running down. So and having Clay, they have somebody who can kind of handle both of those roles, be both a blocker and a good receiver. So obviously it's a ridiculous contract. It's crazy. They're paying him the most guaranteed money of any tight end in the NFL, which he's not worth, but they felt like they needed to do it just to get a tight end and just to pry him away from the Dolphins. So, if he doesn't get 40, 50 catches, a couple touchdowns, I think it'll be a pretty big disappointment given what they're paying him. So, he'll have the opportunities. It's just a matter of how they spread the ball between McCoy and Watkins and Clay and, Harvin, Woods. So that's the key right there. And obviously if the quarterback is whoever that is, if he's capable of even getting the ball there, we'll see.
Mike Rodak of ESPN at the owners' meetings in Phoenix. Mike, what's the biggest vibe, biggest storyline from these owners' meetings that you're taking away while walking around talking and, listening to all the different owners?
Yeah, I think the L.A. Discussion is pretty prominent here. Obviously, there hasn't been too much progress, really, this week, at least on what's going to happen there. But you can feel the momentum and the owner's perception really being that there's going to be probably two teams there next year. So it's moved from sort of a hypothetical into a very strong possibility and almost a certainty at this point. It's just a matter of which of those three, possibly relocating teams are the ones that move. And it could be a standoff in some ways with Stan Kroenke and the Rams and obviously the Chargers and the Raiders and their stadium exploration down there in Carson. So that's really been, I think, the biggest storyline. Some of the rule changes, obviously, I don't think they've, gotten too much buzz around here. But, it's been a busy meetings. It's not been the busiest, but definitely been some things to talk about.
Anything coming out of Terry Pegula saying that he would not oppose a franchise in Toronto?
No, I think that was more hypothetical, big picture. I don't think he's going to pack up the Bills and move them up there after everything that has happened last year and Bon Jovi and just the huge public outcry that came from even the thought of the team moving when they were selling the team last year. I don't think you buy the Bills and have as much goodwill or everything. Terry Pegula standing up at the podium and almost on the verge of tears about Russell Wilson and just the yawner he had in buying the team. I just don't think it makes sense to move him. But now, if a stadium deal falls through and 6-7 years from now the team's struggling, I want to completely rule it out. I mean, honestly, no. This is NFL. It's a business. These guys are businessmen. I mean, you can't take that off the table. But I just don't think the Bills would or Pegula would really be the team that moves there.
Oh, I took it. I'm sorry. I took it as he was okay with them putting a team that close to him. I guess I took it the wrong way.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, we talked about this, I guess, back when the sale was going on. How much? Because I think there was a sentiment around the league that the Bills can move to Toronto. It's not really a big deal. At least nationally, that was some people's idea. But obviously, Bills fans don't think of that. Right. Toronto's a foreign country. It's an hour and a half away. It's not their backyard, as some people think it might be. So I think there's enough distance, enough cultural, but there's a separation there between Buffalo and Toronto. Insofar as they could put a team in Toronto, I don't think it would really impact Bills fans. I don't think they'd follow that team or pry fans away from Western New York. It could pry some fans away from Southern Ontario, which is becoming a bigger part of the Bills' ticket base. But I don't think it's a death knell really to the Bills, and I don't think if Pegula is going to put his foot down as a first-year owner and say, hey, we can't have a team in Toronto. I think that would be a little bit aggressive move on his part.
ESPN's Mike Rodak. You can find out all of his stuff, ESPN.com, ESPNNewYork.com, at the Winters meetings in Phoenix, on Twitter, at Mike Rodak. Mike, always greatly appreciate your time, man. And, we've called you before in the past when Buffalo had the snowstorm. Your tree fell down while we were on the air. You couldn't leave your apartment for 6 days. I guess this is payback. What's the weather there right now, Mike? Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not quite the Winters meetings. I think it's, probably 87, 88. Standing underneath the palm tree right now. So it gives you a picture. The skies are pretty blue. It's a typical day.
Thanks for that picture.
Pretty much the same yesterday, same tomorrow.
How come when we were in Phoenix, it was like rainy and crappy?
Yeah, when we were in Phoenix, they said, man, it has never rained 4 days in a row before.
I don't think there's water around here. I don't know if that exists.
You rat bastard. Well, got to go. Mike Rodak, ESPN. Dude, thanks for your time today, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.